All right, part 3 to your pinch pot project is now taking this pair of pinch pots that you've made and altering the form so that you have a good starting base to start attaching your details to. So there's quite a few different ways, and experiment with what works best for you. One way that I really like is just simply rolling it on the table. Now, what might happen is just due to the weight of your piece, you might start seeing either cracks or it might start collapsing in on you. The collapsing part is probably a weak spot or a stressed spot of your clay. So you'll want to kind of watch for that. If you do get a little crack in your clay, you'll want to do some similar step to the 4 S's. You're going to score that space. Normally you don't have to use slip, but if it's a deep cut and goes all the way through, you might want to use slip. It's not going to hurt anything. It's going to help, but my clay is nice and soft and my cut isn't very deep. So I'm just going to score and then I'm going to smooth that. Don't just smooth because it's like putting a Band-Aid on a deep cut. It'll still keep coming back. Okay, so you really have to actually repair it. Let's say you have kind of a weak spot. One really good thing you can do is use a wooden stick to paddle it. In the classroom, I have these. Just make sure you sanitize before you return it. Or at home, you might have these large sticks in your kit. And some gentle tapping really does 2 things. It helps get specific spots, and the actual hitting of the clay actually compresses and makes the clay more strong. You're kind of packing in those little molecules of clay and strengthening the surface. So if you find that yours is really weak, this is the technique I would strongly suggest. You can continue using your plastic card. The technical name for the ceramic tool like this, sometimes it's kind of in a curved shape. It's called a rib, R-I-B, like the ribs you have protecting your lungs. So you might hear me say, take out your rib. Okay, that's your card. So you just want to get this into a nice form, nice and clean, so that you have kind of a nice, smooth, blank canvas to work on to put your textures for your monsters or details for your creatures on here. Now, if you want to change the form of it, I would go back to either rolling it on the table or paddling, even kind of tapping it on the table. I would say keep it roundish. That's nice and easy. If you want something that's more angular, like a cube or a cylinder, it's just going to take more time to kind of finesse your clay into that form. Okay. So once you've kind of gotten the basic form started, you now know the 4S technique to add on details like eyes, nose, and mouth. So in order to do that, you're going to use this process. So let's say I'm going to make an eyeball. My suggestion is to keep clay under 1 inch thick. Anything thicker than that tends to take too long to dry. And if it doesn't dry out before I put it in the kiln, it will explode. Okay, so let's say that's going to be my eyeball. You already know how to attach clay together. We're doing the 4 S's. So I score. I add a little slip. I'm going to score the part that I'm attaching to. Carefully kind of squish it in there. And then I'm going to stitch. Now, when you're adding small details, you might just be stitching around the edge and kind of joining it. And sometimes that might mean this really nice clean line you had before disappears and it looks a little odd. Okay. Once I get that stuck on there really well, and I always kind of give it a little test and try to pull it off. If it doesn't come off, it should be good. So now I have this kind of mushed surface I don't really like. You can use a tool to draw in a line so you have a little bit more definition of where this eyeball kind of attaches, and it doesn't look so odd. Okay. A lot of kids will just start playing around and adding things, practicing with textures, possibly pressing in, using tools to create patterns. But now it's your time to design your monster.